This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Some Manitoba teachers are getting creative these days, trying to keep kids cool amid the heat wave that's gripping our province. Several schools are still without air conditioning. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, it's sparking concerns about heat-related illness and a challenging learning environment.
Come on, John, let's go.
The end of the day brings relief to John, a grade 1 student in Winnipeg. That's because his school doesn't have air conditioning.
Pretty hot.
Yeah, what's it like being in there all day?
It feels like I'm melting.
John's mom, Megan Cole, has concerns about the temperature in her son's school.
Well, you have to be comfortable to learn at your full potential. It's kind of hard to be, overheating and then pay attention and all sweaty and yucky in your seat. I get that.
Here inside Victoria Albert School, it is hot inside the classroom. I have a thermometer and the temperature reads just under plus 31 degrees Celsius on Tuesday afternoon. The school has been providing students with iced water bottles, and they also use spray bottles to help keep students cool. Principal Nelia Husak tells CBC 300 students attend the school and many come from homes without air conditioning. She says students are advised to wear light-colored clothing and hats for outdoor recess. The River East Transcona School Division says 32 of its 42 schools have air conditioning. According to the superintendent, the division requests air conditioning in multiple schools every year in its capital plan submission to the province. Education Minister Wayne Owasco says in a statement the government increased spending by $100 million this year to help with building expenses such as heating and cooling systems. The president of the Manitoba School Boards Association says the challenge is the heat has arrived earlier than normal. Sandy Nemeth says it's also staying for a prolonged period of time.
With the changes in our environment and our climate, this is only going to be a situation that is with us, and perhaps as it is this year earlier and for a longer period of time.
She says all schools are pressing for costly infrastructure upgrades such as air conditioning systems, and prices are only going up. An improvement Cole would like to see at her son's school.
I'd hope they'd have enough funding for that.
42 schools in the Winnipeg School Division have AC, 27 don't, and 16, including Victoria Albert, are partially air-conditioned. For now, some students here will have to rely on fans and mist to keep cool until the heat lets up. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
I have an idea for a possible date night in your future. How about a romantic dinner and drinks at your neighborhood 7-Eleven? It might just happen. Emily Brass joins us now outside the 7-Eleven at Ness and Sturgeon. Emily, tell us what's happening there.
Well, of course, Janet, you know that 7-Eleven's a place where you can quickly pick up some basics, and people are in line getting stuff like bread and milk, and of course a lot of Slurpees are being poured on this hot day. But this 7-Eleven hopes that soon it'll have a space where people can enjoy a meal along with beer and wine. So it's issued a public notice applying for a liquor license, and it would now include a dining room once that's put in, where alcohol could be served from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. 7 days a week, and that's actually not a new thing for this convenience store. In Ontario, more than 50 7-Eleven stores just got the green light to start selling beer and wine for on-site consumption only, and that's after nearly a dozen 7-Elevens in Alberta started selling alcohol. Here's CBC's Mike Crawley with more on that.
So what 7-Eleven has here in Ontario are restaurant-style liquor licenses. So that means people can't take the beer and wine out of the store. They actually have to drink it on the site in a seating area at the convenience store. Now, 7-Eleven declined our request for an interview about their plan here, but they did allow a CBC videographer inside a store, and you can see that the beer and wine are in fridges, except these fridges are locked and they have to be opened by a staff member. Now, 7-Eleven has won approval for liquor licenses at more than 50 stores across Ontario. There's actually 11 stores in Alberta that started serving alcohol in that province late last year, and unlike Ontario, in Alberta, they allow takeout and delivery of beer and wine from these licensed convenience stores. Some people in the industry here in Ontario are hoping that this is a first step towards full-fledged sales of beer and wine from convenience stores.
It's the first step in demonstrating to citizens and people in Ontario that the world won't end because, finally a convenience store with hot food is actually offering you a cold beverage if you want to sit in the store.
Now, even before Doug Ford was elected premier, he was promising to open up beer and wine sales from convenience stores in Ontario. That was 5 years ago, but Ford hasn't been able to make good on that promise yet. And that's largely because of a contract between the province and the beer store, the big retailer here in Ontario that's owned by Labatt and Molson's. And that contract stipulates where beer can be sold from, and it doesn't allow for sales from convenience stores. Lots of sales from grocery stores, supermarkets, but that contract expires in 2025, and all the signs indicate that when that does happen, we will see full-fledged beer and wine sales from convenience stores, just like across the border in Quebec. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, so now because of Mike's report, we have an idea of what it could look like here in Winnipeg. What do people who live near this particular 7-Eleven at Ness and Sturgeon have to say about it, Emily?
Well, our colleague Jim Agapito was here earlier, and he spoke to a few customers about what they think about the possibility of having some booze with their fast food.
Well, I think that's a great idea. I think that if you want to have a little woohoo with it, it's great to have, and it makes it easy you don't have to go all over the place or go get a drink later. You just come here and it's all here for you. And it's another stream of income for the place too as well.
7-Eleven just doesn't seem to be like a restaurant name to me, it's not like it's High Steak Loft or something like that. So what are they going to be serving, fried chicken or?
I'm curious, is 7-Eleven a place where you would sit down, have a meal and get some liquor?
Not currently, but if they change things, then yes, for sure. It would be something different to try.
Well, I've been to the States quite a bit, and they do the same thing, right? So it is convenient. Making 7-Eleven a restaurant, I don't think I'm already waiting for my food, so I might be waiting a little longer. But do I like the convenience? Yes, I do.
So, Emily, what would be the next step for this plan?
Well, Manitoba Liquor, Gaming and Cannabis says the approval process could take up to 6 weeks, and it says 7-Eleven will have to make changes inside the store before it'll be allowed to sell alcohol. So I guess for now, we're going to have to stick with the soft drinks. Janet?
Emily Brass reporting live from outside a 7-Eleven on Ness and Sturgeon. Thanks, Emily. The new chair at the board of Manitoba Public Insurance faced reporters today to address turmoil in recent months at the Crown Corporation. CBC's Bartley Kivas brings us details.
It is perhaps out of the ordinary for a board chair to provide this kind of a briefing.
We don't often hear from board chairs at Crown Corporations, but it hasn't been business as usual at MPI. Digital upgrades that were supposed to cost just over $100 million nearly tripled to $290 million, prompting the government to order up a review of MPI. That's still to come. In the meantime, new MPI board chair Ward Keith says digital upgrades, known as Project Nova, are under control.
I'm pleased to report today that the project is now proceeding on scope and on schedule and is well within the budget that's been created.
That's not good enough for critics of the public insurer.
Project Nova has been going south in a bad way for a long time.
Lawyer Byron Williams acts for the Consumers Association of Manitoba.
Mr. Keith is an honorable man, but when they say that Project Nova's costs are not going to get above that $300 million cap, which is devastating in and of itself, it depends on the project description.
It'll take 2 more years for MPI to complete its digital upgrades. Motorists should be able to buy Autopack online next year, but there's no guarantee that'll be any cheaper than going through an insurance broker.
Brokers in this province, I do believe, provide an important service to Manitobans, and so they need to be part of whatever online solution we look at moving forward.
MPI has cleaned house at the top. Over the May long weekend, it dismissed its CEO, Eric Herblin. 2 other execs also left, including Chief Information Officer Siddhartha Party, who is living in Ontario.
This individual was asked to relocate to Winnipeg or to Manitoba. And Mr. Party chose to resign a few days later instead.
Ward Keith also says MPI is reining in consulting costs and has its finances in order.
Later this month, MPI will apply to get its rates approved for next year. It's required to keep those rates frozen. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
RCMP are searching an abandoned home in San Clara, Manitoba, for an Indigenous woman who disappeared more than 3 years ago. 41-year-old Melinda Lynxleg went missing from Tutanawazibing Cree Nation, it's a treaty reserve, in April 2020. That's about 65 kilometers west of Dauphin. Police believe Lynxleg has been killed. Previous searches turned up no clues about her disappearance. Now police say new information has led them to this tiny community in western Manitoba. Officers and a forensic anthropologist are involved in the search now. You know it's hot when even the tropical biome at the Leaf has to close because it's too hot. The Leaf in Assiniboine Park had to close for several hours on Sunday after the temperatures inside rose beyond what's considered safe. The Assiniboine Park Conservancy says one of its temperature sensors was sitting in direct sunlight, and it registered over 43 degrees Celsius. Now that wasn't an accurate reading. It's because it was sitting in the direct sunlight. Still, that's outside the safe operating range of between 24 and 36 degrees Celsius. The Leaf was able to reopen 3 hours later. Just awfully hot, and I can't imagine how hot those schoolrooms are for students.
Yeah, like if you're in a room that is 25, 26, that's uncomfortable, but we saw that schoolroom at almost 32 degrees.
Yeah, too warm.
Yeah, that's unbearable. We've got a lot of heat and a lot of action across the province. We've got warnings we did have warnings in the south for severe thunderstorms, plenty of those in the north. I'm going to show you the whole province in this next couple of seconds here, and we're going to start with satellite and radar, and you can see where most of the action is. This is a 3-hour loop, so this is showing you where the cloud cover is and where the rain is. It looks a lot like yesterday, doesn't it? The only difference is a lot of this is moving from the west to the east. Yesterday it was going in the other direction, but what I mean by that, the similarity is it's either sunny or it's raining, and you can hear thunder. And yes, there is thunder because there is lightning in a lot of these clouds here. So now when we bring in the lightning, you can see one of these little storms that just popped up a couple of hours ago to the east of Winnipeg, moved through St. Anne, Richer area, now weakening to the south. There's more of that just up behind the banner on the east side of Lake Winnipeg. And some of this back to the west of us, just to the west of Portage la Prairie, where right around McGregor, that storm went through or is going through, heading toward Portage la Prairie. The severe thunderstorm warning that was attached to that storm is now over, but that just means the storm is starting to settle down. We still have the danger of the heavy downpours and the lightning and some pretty heavy-duty wind gusts. Up near Swan River, a very active day again today. Benito, Swan River, raining right now. The lightning is now east of that community and heading up into the Grand Rapids area where we have more warnings for storms, but we don't have radar coverage this far north, which is shocking to me. We just don't. We don't have radars that cover that part of the province. And we still have the heat warning here in the south. That's this red shaded area. So currently, no severe thunderstorm watch or warning in the south, just the heat warning. All of this weather will continue to settle down and move to the east tonight. Right now in Winnipeg, we're at 31, south winds at 17. Pressure has been gently falling through the day. This is what Futurecast looks like right now. It kind of looks like a radar. It's sort of a radar into the future. You look at this evening, and we could see some of those storms out to the west of us moving into the Winnipeg area, just in case you're going out for a bike ride. Lots of action across the north, because it is bike week, right? And then on into the morning and afternoon tomorrow, a lot of this moves off to the east. But it's a similar day across southern Manitoba. On into the later part of the day, we see more showers, storms move through early in the morning on Thursday and then again in the afternoon on Thursday. And that is followed by clearing and a very stable weather pattern toward the weekend. Not much relief from the heat tonight. 19, 20 degrees is the low. Fall asleep time, say 10, 11, still be around 23 to 25 degrees. There's your morning temperature. A little bit more of a breeze tomorrow and a little bit cooler, but a chance of afternoon storms. Once again, our UV rating is through the roof. It's at 9, so very high, and that's the forecast for tomorrow. And then in the long range, you can see the more stable weather moving in and some relief from the heat on Saturday, Janet. 13 in the morning and just 23, which is seasonal normal for the afternoon.
It'll probably feel lovely. Thank you, John.
You bet.
Check in with you a little later. Coming up, David Johnston defending his reputation while testifying at a parliamentary committee. The tough questions he faced about his decision to reject a public inquiry into foreign interference allegations. We'll hear his story after the break.
There was never a formal investigation into what happened, which I think happens often, that assumptions are just made and it's normalized, that sometimes we just die a violent death and that's it.
At some point, we need to move beyond acknowledgement and recognition, and we need to act.
Special Rapporteur David Johnston faced tough questions from members of Parliament today while testifying at a parliamentary committee. Johnston defended his reputation and his decision to reject the idea of a public inquiry into foreign interference allegations in Canadian politics. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian brings us the latest.
David Johnston facing criticism in person.
As Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau described you as a lifelong family friend, a friendship cemented over many summers.
I was friends of the father of Mr. Trudeau through his life in politics.
His ties to the Prime Minister painting a target on his back for the Conservatives since March, when Justin Trudeau appointed him as Special Rapporteur looking into foreign interference in Canadian elections and asked him to make the call on whether there should be a public inquiry. Johnston has urged against one, landing him in this seat to explain himself.
The Conservatives just had a total of 15 minutes worth of questions, and they didn't ask a single question about foreign interference. Not a single question. Madam Chair, it was nothing more than a character assassination.
The questions eventually came, including from some of the opposition MPs whose names have been at the center of news reports alleging China targeted them for their vocal opposition to Beijing's human rights record.
Do you not see how recommending against a public inquiry undermines confidence in our democratic institutions?
What we have recommended and what we intend to do in the next 5 months is to have public hearings.
What is your concept of the appearance of conflict, and what does that mean to you?
The appearance of a conflict of interest would be a reasonable person in possession of all the true facts, concluding that a person would not be able to provide unbiased judgment on a particular matter.
Next month, Johnston intends to start public hearings speaking to intelligence officials and diaspora communities, but opposition parties have already voted for a public inquiry instead 3 times now, their judgment of his work proving difficult to sway. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Thousands of people have been forced from their homes in southern Ukraine. This move comes after a dam blew up there early this morning, releasing a destructive flood of water through the area. Ukraine blames Russia for the attack, but as we hear from CBC's Briar Stewart, Moscow blames Ukraine.
A new disaster in the middle of a war zone. Ukrainian crews are rescuing those stranded by rising waters. At times, they say, under shelling by Russian forces. Russian beasts, what can you say, says this woman. Ukraine accuses Russia of blowing up a section of the Nova Kakhovka Dam and hydroelectric plant to make it harder for Ukraine's military to push further south.
The vast majority of people have been evacuated. About 13 villages are now almost entirely underwater. There are shortages with drinking water across Kherson region and Zaporizhia region, and the actual dam was destroyed beyond repair.
Satellite pictures show that in recent days, the condition of the dam had deteriorated, but the deluge of water didn't come until this morning. On the south side of the river, Russian-occupied villages are waterlogged, and presumably so are some of Russia's military positions. The Kyiv regime committed an act of sabotage, claimed Russia's defense minister, who blamed Ukraine. The burst dam sparked new fears about the Zaporizhia power plant, which lies upstream, but energy officials say there's no immediate danger for now. Western leaders say it's clear who's ultimately to blame.
This is yet another example of the horrific consequences of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine.
What do you think of Russia saying that it's Ukraine that blew up this dam?
Oh, it's a joke.
Steve Naron is a Canadian living in Kherson. He had packed his car last night and planned to leave the area this morning, but he changed his plans because Russia stepped up attacks.
Early this morning, maybe 7 or 8, they started shelling and shelling and shelling.
Ukrainian officials say it will take a week for all the water to empty into the Black Sea. As it recedes, they're warning about a new risk, landmines which could have been moved by the floodwaters. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
The Bank of Canada makes its next interest rate announcement tomorrow. You'll remember this Bank of Canada hiked its benchmark rate repeatedly. It did this so repeatedly and then put increases on pause earlier this year. But there's growing speculation now that that pause may be lifted. As Nisha Patel reports, it has many mortgage holders watching tomorrow's news closely.
Stephen Lawrence's mortgage was up for renewal, and he was faced with some tough questions.
I looked at, what if I had to pay 5% interest? What if I had to pay 6% interest?
Anxious about even higher rates, he went fixed.
I'm glad that I'm locked in. I mean, obviously I'd love to have under 3%, who wouldn't? But, this is the reality.
Their new rate means he and his husband are paying $850 more every month for their condo. For now, they're making it work.
I'd prefer $850 to be going to vacations or, going to stuff for my baby.
But anyone with a mortgage that's up for renewal or coping with variable payments may need to brace themselves as speculation grows that the Bank of Canada could restart interest rate hikes.
The pause that they signaled after January was really to wait and see if they had raised rates enough. So this was a very conditional pause.
According to this economist, Canada's economy hasn't slowed enough, and the central bank will need to act.
You're risking high inflation just becoming more embedded. You're risking inflation expectations going up, and then you're risking not ever getting back to 2%.
While higher interest rates have only hit about a third of mortgage holders so far, by 2026, nearly all homeowners will be paying more for their mortgage.
They will be startled and shocked to see a massive change in payment, a massive difference in what they're spending. The 5-year rate has increased a full 0.5%.
Many Canadians may need to reset their expectations, with some experts predicting the days of record low interest rates are long gone.
A rate that starts with a 4 will become the new normal for people, and it will be really hard for Canadians to afford houses in the major cities with these kind of rates.
Markets are betting there's a near 50-50 chance that the Bank of Canada will raise interest rates tomorrow. And if not, many predict an interest rate hike is certainly in the cards before the fall. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Prince Harry spent 5 hours in a London courtroom today. He called the tabloid press there vile and blamed intrusive stories about his private life for bouts of depression. The rare royal testimony is part of a lawsuit alleging some newspapers illegally hacked the phones of celebrities. Margaret Evans brings us more.
Your left, your left.
The Prince and the press.
How are you feeling, Prince Harry?
Harry, Duke of Sussex, arriving at London's High Court in the eye of a media storm that has dogged him for most of his life. He and dozens of other high-profile claimants are suing the Mirror group of tabloid newspapers, accusing them of gathering information illegally between 1991 and 2011, hacking voicemail, hiring private investigators. Harry has long campaigned against the intrusions of a tabloid press he blames for the death of his mother, Princess Diana, killed in a Paris car crash after being pursued by paparazzi. PR experts have warned there are risks for Harry in cross-examination.
And he's going to be cross-examined by a barrister with a raft of techniques that are designed purely to undermine him, Prince Harry.
Harry's suit is based on 33 newspaper articles he says contain details that could only have been gleaned illegally, all the way back to when he was just a schoolboy. In a written statement released before he took the stand, he accused the tabloids of painting him as a cheat and underage drinker, of seeking to break up his relationships by putting as much strain on them as humanly possible. And he said Britain was being judged by the state of a press and a government at rock bottom. But he'll have to do more than cite the impact of press intrusion on his life. He'll have to prove journalists actually employed the means he accuses them of and that their bosses knew about it. Aside from one instance, the Mirror Group insists its information came from legitimate sources. Harry spent 5 hours on the witness stand.
very few people, actually relish a day in court, but I think to a degree he is relishing this. This is going to give some real meaning to his life, to his backstory, his history, his mother's tragic death. He's a man on a mission.
You're right, you're right.
That mission continues tomorrow, when Harry is expected to appear for a second day of questioning. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Big news in the world of professional golf today. The PGA Tour is forming a partnership with the Saudi-backed LIV Golf. This effectively ends a dispute that's cast a pall over men's golf for a year now. The agreement combines the two entities' commercial businesses and rights into a new company. The announcement comes a year after LIV Golf began. Players on that tour were barred from competing at PGA Tour events. The rival tours have been entangled in several legal disputes. Under this agreement, all pending litigation will be dropped. Smoke is blanketing parts of Ontario and Quebec as wildfires burn across the country, triggering air quality warnings that are off the charts, quite literally. We'll show you just how bad things are in places after the break. Wildfires are still burning across Canada in every province and territory except for PEI and Nunavut. The situation across eastern Ontario is getting worse, and in Quebec there's hope some communities and growing concern in other communities. As Jennifer Yoon reports, smoke from wildfires is blanketing both provinces, Quebec and Ontario, and triggering air quality warnings.
Relief along with the rainfall. In some parts of Quebec, the situation is getting better, like in Sept-Îles, which was under threat for days. Now, those who were evacuated in that city allowed to return. And while the situation is improving in some parts of the province, there are others that are still a cause for concern, says Premier François Legault.
Right now, our preoccupation are about Abitibi, so mainly Le Bel-Sur-Quévillon and Nord-Métal, Chisasibi in the north of Quebec, where we have to be careful.
Indeed, that part of the province, Abitibi in the west, has dozens of fires still burning. Many of them are out of control and threatening people's homes and livelihoods. François Bonnardel, Quebec's public security minister, says over 5,000 people still can't return to their homes, and it's not clear when they can return.
It's quite complicated to said to you that tomorrow it's going to be better. We have around 78 fires right now in Témiscamingue, Abitibi. We are fighting about 12 of them and hoping that we will be able to combat and fight strongly those fires. So we will see what's going to happen in the next hours, next days.
All of this is having a far-reaching and dramatic impact on air quality. Among the worst affected areas are Kingston and Ottawa. And things were so bad in Ottawa this morning, in fact, that the risk level went literally off the charts. Sports games were canceled, teachers being asked to cancel outdoor activities and close the windows of their classrooms. We've even heard from a patient who says that their surgery in the Ottawa area was canceled due to the air quality. Now, Environment Canada says that those who are in affected areas should change their behavior, especially those who have chronic conditions like asthma and COPD. They should take special care, avoid going outside, close their windows, and avoid strenuous exercise. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Montreal.
Meteorologist John Sauter joins us once again. So, John, just how widespread is this smokiness?
You know, in eastern Canada, I'm going to show you a map of the smoke plumes starting Saturday and how it has evolved and right up to the current time. But it is shocking how thick it is in eastern Canada. And I will go to that map. And so, again, this starts at Saturday in the afternoon. And then you can really see in eastern Canada how things get a lot worse. We're very lucky here in Manitoba so far that we're not seeing much of the smoke, but I checked the visibility in Ottawa just a moment ago, and it's at 5 kilometers. That's just the visibility. So, you know, airplanes landing at the airport would have to be on instruments instead of doing visual landings, I do think. But you can see the thickest smoke from all of these fires in Quebec, and all of that is drifting down to the south. And Toronto visibility right now at 10 kilometers, Kingston 5 or less. So yes, it is a choking smoke out to the east. Here we are clear for now, but lots of storms, and I was thinking about this today, lots of storms across the north. So a lot of lightning, and yes, some spotty showers, and some of those showers were heavy, but hopefully the rain lands where we need it, and we don't see new fires starting from all of the lightning that we've seen in the province today. 31 in Winnipeg at the airport right now, 33 downtown, and 29 in Steinbach. That's why the classrooms are so warm. The non-air conditioned ones today, wow, it's heat that is in the 30s. Normal highs for these locations would be right around 23. Cooler in Kenora and Red Lake because we have seen some showers in those areas, but that's on the cooler side of this big upper ridge that is also bringing the warmer air up to the north. So temperatures in the 20s across the north. All of the thick cloud you see here, that is the storm activity that is moving through the north and out to the east as we head into the night tonight and into tomorrow. Still a chance of showers as we head through the night tonight in through the Kenora area, Dryden up around Red Lake, not so much in Fort Francis. Here in the southeast, we've got some evening showers or storms and then just partly cloudy conditions overnight, but still very warm temperatures. Lots of 18s and 19s. These would be the morning lows. So as you're trying to fall asleep tonight, You know, it's going to be still in the mid-20s or so. Tonight, chance of showers, thunderstorms pretty much right across the north. Tomorrow is a little bit less active. A sunny 29 in the Pas, 28 in Flin Flon, a chance of afternoon showers, afternoon shower or storm in Thompson, and a few showers up around Churchill as well, and everyone in the 20s. Some sunshine in Lynn Lake, though. And then across the south, we've got some sun and some cloud and a chance of showers, risk of a storm. I sound like a broken record. Same thing on Monday, today, tomorrow, same thing. 27 degrees, so not quite as warm tomorrow, but still some hit and miss showers. Not as much in the southeast corner of the province. Could see a morning shower around Kenora, but an afternoon shower in Dryden and a few occasional showers in Red Lake. Some severe thunderstorm warnings have popped up west of the city. I'll show you those in a few minutes.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
New fishing regulations came into effect April 1st for recreational anglers here in Manitoba. Because of one of these changes, the town of Lynn Lake has canceled its annual Great Northern Pike live release fishing derby. Eugene Shin is president of the Chamber of Commerce. He's joined by Tyler Hunt, the deputy mayor. Hi, gentlemen. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
How big a deal, Eugene, is the fishing derby to the economy of Lynn Lake?
It's one of our pillar events that we run in the community of Lynn Lake. We have a summer fishing derby and a winter carnival. So in the summertime, it attracts people from all over our neighboring communities, and it really allows us to celebrate our backyard, the Great North, and the sport fishing of in our beautiful province.
So, Deputy Mayor Hunt, what will you lose if you lose this fishing derby?
Well, I mean, it's an awesome community event and celebration. It's the entire July-long weekend for us. It fills our restaurants, it fills our hotels. It's just we have people come as far as Winnipeg to participate in this weekend. It fills our provincial parks. It's going to be devastating.
There's big money on the line too, isn't there, Deputy Mayor?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I believe it's $10,000 for first place. Going all the way down to, I think, 10th for about $200, and yeah, it's something that we look forward to every year, and now we just couldn't find a way to do it properly with the new regulations.
Here's the exact change that came into effect on April 1st. The new 2023 Manitoba Anglers Guide said no one can be in possession of a northern pike over 75 centimeters or 30 inches long. The province says it's to protect the large fish that are an important spawning stock. Anyone who wants to win a prize at your derby has to live release the fish. The fish has to be alive and released after it's measured, correct?
That's correct.
So, Deputy Mayor, what do you say your impact on conservation is?
Well, as an avid fisherman growing up in the community for 37 years, I can go out on a road-accessible lake within, say, 30 kilometers of the community, several lakes. I can fish all day, have an excellent, phenomenal day of fishing, not see another boat. You cannot convince me that taking a couple of trophy pike to shore once a year will have a negative impact on the fishery in our area.
The province says you could do this just as easily by taking photos of the fish on the lake. Why can't you do that, Eugene? Why won't that work for you?
Unfortunately, we're in an isolated area, in a rural area where we still don't have cell service. So because we don't have cell service, a lot of our local residents don't have smartphones or access to the technologies that you would find down south. So it's very difficult and very challenging for our anglers to participate in a derby that's reliant on a technology that just isn't here in Lynn Lake. Also, there's a lot of money on the line. It's a very competitive fishing derby. So, you know, in order to keep the integrity of the fishing derby alive and to ensure that every angler has every opportunity to submit their catch in fairly, we need to ensure that they get measured onshore by our judges on our board with our measurements to make sure that the winning prize goes to the people that deserve it.
So assuming nothing changes in terms of the provincial regulations, what's your plan moving forward for this derby?
So we really have to completely restructure our derby. We can't rely on technologies up here. So we're going to have to get our heads together and include all of our stakeholders and come up with a plan to hopefully come up with a solution here, and so that we can continue to put on this derby, which I last checked was since 1976.
Eugene Shin and Tyler Hunt, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
4 years ago, the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls issued a report calling for change. Coming up, a personal story about how the system failed two young cousins. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Four years ago, the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls issued a report calling for change. A CBC analysis shows that to date, only 2 of the 231 calls for justice have been completed, and more than half haven't even been started. Tonight, the story of cousins sent from their home in Chesterfield Inlet, Nunavut, to Winnipeg, where they face terrible abuse.
My name is Nikki Kumaksiutiksak. My home community is Chesterfield in Nunavut. Jessica Michaels is my first cousin, but we called each other sisters. And in 2001, she was murdered here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So when me and my sister Jessica, when we were 13 years old, I mean, as we all know, the legacy of the residential school system is not a very nice story. And there's a lot of horrible things that happened to a lot of Indigenous people across Canada. And as a result, my mother and my aunts and my uncles and many other people across Canada, when they started having children, it was very hard for them to parent because they weren't taught how to parent appropriately. And as a result of that, I was sent to Winnipeg when I was 6 because my mother couldn't take care of me. Out of the 4 of us girls, Jessica had the most beautiful voice. She could light up a room just by one verse of a song. Her voice was that beautiful. And we traveled the world throat singing and showcasing our identity and our culture back in the early 90s. But behind closed doors, me and my sisters suffered the most extreme abuse that anyone could ever endure. Torturous abuse. I mean, some stories are being beaten with an extension cord, wire hangers, being stabbed and sewn, and no one knew where we were and what was happening to us. So it was really easy for us to get involved with very scary people. But it was hard for Jessica because she was the worst, beaten and abused. So growing up in the child family system here in Winnipeg, you know, she got involved with the wrong crowd. She got involved with a man that promised her love, money, cars. She had a lot of friends that were being murdered, and she was afraid that she was next. They found her in a rooming house on William Avenue. The toxicologist reported saying that there was so much crack cocaine in her system that a grown man's heart could have busted. She was found with an extension cord wrapped around her neck, kneeling down, holding an X-Acto knife in one hand. No one was held responsible for her death. No one wanted to take responsibility for her death. The government of Nunavut, the government of Canada, the province of Manitoba, the child welfare system. Justice for me, when we think about Nunavut, for example, there are so much crises happening in Nunavut as a result of lack of resources. We look at the food prices first and foremost and how that affects families and children. We look at the housing crisis, and it's a housing crisis. You have addictions, you have trauma, you have abuse, and then you have the highest rate of suicides in all over the world in Nunavut. So yes, it is the responsibility of the Crown of the government to ensure that there are proper programming and resources available. I need my community to feel rich when it comes to who they are and where they come from. And that is my goal for the rest of my life.
Stories like this can be so upsetting to hear and to see, but they're crucial for reconciliation. If you need support, there's a number on your screen right now for Suicide Talk Canada. You probably don't have a pen, so you'll find it online, talksuicide.ca. Remember Kids Help Phone as well. It's a 24-hour option there for you if you need help. Meteorologist John Sauter has a 7-day forecast, and we'll bring you your daily lift, so stay with us. Be right back.
Well, Janet and I are just looking out the window here from downtown Winnipeg at a storm that now has a severe thunderstorm warning on it. It is just south of Winnipeg. This one very vertically developed just north of Morris, right along Highway 59 now. Some heavy rain, some hail coming out of that as well. Another new warning just to the west of Minnedosa on this storm, all headed up in a northeasterly direction. And we get more of this tomorrow, a little bit more on Thursday, then a very stable weather pattern heading into the weekend and a cooler day on Saturday. A beekeeper in Yemen is trying to promote his profession in a country that's famous for its honey.
I did not know that.
I love honey.
Here's your daily lift. Wow.
Ooh.
He's putting out videos of himself covering his head and shoulders with thousands of bees. He wants to create a buzz around the fact that Yemen is a major honey producer. It produces around 1,500 tons of honey every year, but of course, with the war on, that's really limited things, and it's capable of doing much more. So hopefully, with these wonderful videos, he'll be able to get some, attention to the fact that Yemen's got this great capability.
And attention to the fact that bees don't sting like you think.
Well, at least not him.
Do.
Because he's very sweet. Thanks for being with us. See you tomorrow.
Good night.